Huh?
Good morning. It's Wednesday, I think. No, it's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. Oh, I ran so fast like Sonic that I ran into the future. It's SJU here on Fandom Entertainment. Dan, Spencer, Danielle. Hey, y'all. We're talking the glorious piece of art that is the Sonic the Hedgehog trailer today. I know sometimes you guys want us to talk about like real films and art, and so that is what we are really aiming to do today in our deep dive analysis of all things Sonic the Hedgehog. We're talking Lord and Miller, and we're going to do some John Singleton talk. We lost him, which is very, very sad. So we're going to talk about his work, his legacy, what he means to us as filmmakers, people he's influenced. But before all that, we've got to talk about possibly a film that was most influenced by John Singleton.
Oh.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Well, it's from the producers of Fast and Furious, and John Singleton did make a Fast and Furious
absolutely.
movie.
Yeah.
It turns out that anyone can produce anything. It doesn't
There are a lot of
matter.
producers
Anyone.
on movies.
Lots of people produce anything you
Yep.
want.
True.
Let's man, a lot to unpack here with the Sonic the Hedgehog trailer. Now, of course, the picture of Sonic came out. God, it seems like years ago now. In a pre-endgame world.
Different studio for us.
Yeah.
Wow.
Different studio, different set. Back when the Sonic picture came out, we had a lot of takes there. Oh, look at his weird face.
Look at his little snoot. I want to boop it.
You want to yeah, okay, so biggest hot take so far, Danielle? Boopable Snoop.
Oh, biggest hot take for Danielle right now. Is this Howard the Duck? Is he just Howard the Duck without the horny?
I think honestly that's how
not
I
without
felt
the
about
horny.
it. Yeah, that is. Yeah, that's. They're leaning in a little bit right there. I see it. Let's talk about this trailer. Dan, how'd you feel about it?
I don't. It's weird. It's aesthetically, it's very odd. The music choice was very bizarre. I don't know why you would set a Sonic the Hedgehog trailer to Gangsta's Paradise.
Did they just watch
The
us?
90s, I think.
It's the
Is it the
90s?
90s?
There's a lot of 90s
I didn't see enough
songs
like
you could
Jinko
use.
pants to be like this is the 90s.
Right.
Like, but it's a Soul Asylum or something there. You know, there's lots of 90s songs you can
could have
use.
done Runaway Train as a
Right there. It's right there.
Been terrible.
It couldn't have been worse than that.
Train never coming back. Just a sad montage of
Yes.
Sonic running.
It was an odd.
I got 9,000 steps.
It was
Seems
an odd
like
music choice. There are
freaking
50 needle
true.
drops that I could use to remember the 90s, and that would not have been the one I would have chosen. It
Well,
just
I'm not
the
even
ending
sure it
on
is
was
the
weird.
90s. It's just that
True.
I'm being
Sonic happened in the 90s.
charitable, yeah.
Yeah. Just for some reason, someone really wanted this.
I spent hours playing. Sonic the Hedgehog was a huge part of my childhood, but I put Sonic the Hedgehog away with my Sega. So I don't have a huge attachment.
You don't have
to
that
Sonic.
attachment.
Some people do. He looks a little weird, but lower half of the body looks strange. But I also don't know how you would do it on the little sneaker legs, like in the video game. How do you visualize that? So that looks a little weird. I like the way they visualize him moving quickly. It's got like a Quicksilver vibe to it. That looked pretty cool. Jim Carrey's doing Jim Carrey.
That's the
again,
best part.
Which I like.
That I'm fine with.
But it also looks super weird. So.
What did James Marsden do?
To deserve this?
And who did he do it to? He's done Hop. He's done this. What did he do?
We'll talk about this weirdness with Marsden first, and then we can talk into the positives of we can get into the positives of Jim Carrey in this, because honestly, if this was just a Jim Carrey movie with no Sonic, like a Dr. Robotnik movie for no reason, I'd be like, okay, because he was fun and weird. But James Marsden is such a talented dude,
Right?
and he's
very good at acting.
always
and
ends
he's
up
very
doing
handsome.
stuff like this.
It was like my theory is that it's like twins where Chris Pine and James, and there's only one of them can exist. And unfortunately, James had to suffer so Chris Pine could live.
Okay.
That's my current theory.
Is James Marsden secretly the best Hollywood Chris?
Well, no, because the Chris's are taking all the good roles. There's nothing
Yeah.
left for James.
Yeah.
He's reached peak TV with Westworld. You know, he was great at one of the shining spots of the last iffy season. But when he makes the jump to feature film, it's either Sonic or like he's always like the supportive boyfriend that loses the girl at the end.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of put upon in his movie roles.
But he's so good at all of them, and I want good things for him. He's so good in Enchanted. He's such a funny dude. Hell, he's funny in it was like a weird sex rom thing from the 90s. Seth. Little Seth, robot chicken Seth.
Green.
Seth Green, thank you. I just was running through Seths.
Rogan. Myers.
It was like called Sex Trip or Sex Drive or something like that.
Sex Trip.
It was one of those American Pie knockoffs.
It's called Sex Trip.
Sex Trip.
Yes.
Was it Sex Trip?
No.
It's not Sex Euro Trip, maybe?
I'm looking it up.
All I know is Seth Green played a sarcastic Amish kid in it.
Sex Drive.
Thank you, Sex
Really?
Drive.
Wow.
Seriously? Wow.
Yeah, it was
wasn't
about-
Euro Trip. It wasn't Road Trip. It wasn't American
No,
Pie.
it was about a guy making a road trip to have sex.
Cool.
All right.
That tracks.
Point being,
That's what people
James
do.
Marsden is hilarious in it, and he's been our most underrated player in Hollywood for a long time now, since the American Pie clone days. You guys, he's the OG at this.
Yeah. All right.
He's the underappreciated OG. Jim Carrey, late '90s vibes. Good, bad. Spencer, Danielle.
Sure, like I like your idea of this, like let's make the Doctor Doom movie, but just Robotnik, and let's just follow Jim Carrey around, and there's this dastardly hedgehog moving as a blur among the edges of what he's trying to do. It's a peanut butter and tuna fish mixture for me to see human beings interact with Sonic the Hedgehog. I guess I grew up on the cartoon and the video game, and like make a cartoon out of the
Jaleel
cartoon
White or
character.
nothing.
Jaleel White or nothing. Oh, I'm a chili dogs. But he's if we could just stick with Jim Carrey being like a sadistic inventor, I'm all about that. The Sonic stuff, a little disturbing. And
A little unfortunate.
yeah, I don't know what part of the fan base they're trying to appeal to. It seems like they've managed to disappoint everybody, and that's rare. So I commend them.
Who is this for? Who is that Genesis joke for?
I guess
Us?
but
Yes.
But the movie is not for me.
no.
I like that Jim Carrey, when he moves, robot noises happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
What is the arc of this movie going to be where he finally earns being bald with a giant mustache?
I was just looking at
Very
that.
excited about that.
I think that is a Tomb Raider situation. The new Tomb Raider, you know, in the trailer when she takes the guns and she goes to the pawn shop, she's like, "I'll have two."
Yeah,
and
and
that
then
was
it
the
ends.
last shot of the movie. I am predicting that that is the
100%.
last shot. Of the
I
movie,
mean,
or
he's-
near the last.
He's
shot
definitely
of the
in
movie.
an alien world at the end of that.
I am predicting that that is the last
See,
shot.
if
of the movie.
that
Yeah.
was the movie, if Jim Carrey were the only human in the movie, I would be way more on board.
Yeah.
Way
Yeah.
more if this was Jim
into that.
Carrey had been Alice in Wonderlanded himself into the Sonic world.
Justice for
That'd be
Miles
great.
Tails Prower.
Oh,
Will there be a
they'll tease
Knuckles
him. Yeah,
shout
there
out?
will be like, like sound of knuckles popping.
Yeah.
Like, now it's my turn. Credits. I promise you that all the Sonic things they'll just throw in the
Yeah.
end credit scene.
Definitely Knuckles going next time, baby.
Also, I don't think we can show these, but a fun game we were playing before. The Sonic has a very fun fandom, and a lot of them make their own Sonics. And so, a
Yes.
fun game we were playing is Google your name
Your
plus
name,
the
the
hedgehog,
Hedgehog.
and see what comes up.
A lot
Mine-
of characters to mind.
Yeah, Dan's looked really dapper and cool. It was
Mine
wearing a
was
suit.
naturally the most boring version you could imagine.
Oh, yeah.
He was wearing like jeans and a
Sensible
button-up
button-up
shirt.
shirt and jeans.
Thanks.
Mine very-
Hello, I'm Daniel the Hedgehog.
Exactly.
Mine was very clearly on
That's
meth,
on brand.
though, and that was frustrating. Spencer, what? I didn't see yours.
I forgot to bring my phone into the studio, so
Should I
haven't-
Google it for you?
Yeah, go ahead and
I'm
go.
gonna Google
Mine,
Danielle, what was your Sonic
well,
like?
you can actually find Danielle the Hedgehog on the Sonic Fandom wiki on Fandom, powered by Wikia. Danielle is a I'm not kidding. I wish I was. Danielle is a violet red hedgehog and Breezy's sidekick. Who's Breezy? I don't know.
You be the judge.
Okay.
She is one of the many characters in Mobius we drawn in the self-insert of Konikachu herself.
Solid.
There it is. That's her.
Yeah.
She crashed her computer.
Let's show
That's
off,
a
let's show
powerful
off
show.
Spinny.
This is Spencer the Hedgehog.
I like that.
Okay.
He's got some attitude.
Yeah. He's got some snark and some tune.
He's a rude
Hang on, there we
dude
go.
with
Oh,
dude.
I got like a
There you
little
go.
devil tail.
Yeah, little devil. Little hedgehog. hedgehog devil.
Yeah, he's got it looks kind of like a version of Knuckles. He's got
got the
two
spikes,
pointy
yeah.
spikes. Yeah, so
Cool.
there's Spencer the Hedgehog. Can I show you the second? Can I show you the second option?
Yes, please.
This is which is obviously done by a child.
Is it? Obviously.
Well,
That's about my level of drawing.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's
that's
actually
how-
better than I can draw. So I shouldn't insult this individual's
They
drawing.
stayed within the lines. That's more more than I can do.
Way more than me.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
true.
blank the hedgehog yourself. It's
It's a fun
minutes of
game.
entertainment.
Minutes! Yeah, let's see here. Ben Schwartz as the voice of Sonic.
Schwartz.
I like him
that
so
guy.
much.
How much of this is the legs? How
Right.
much
Just
of
Sonic's
how much
legs.
of this
Hashtag Sonic's legs.
backlash is just the legs? Because I will agree, it looks weird. It looks odd. I'm not angry about it, but it does look odd.
I mean, ultimately, to me,
It looks like he's wearing yoga pants.
I don't have an
Look, he's wearing blue furry yoga pants.
I don't have an attachment to Sonic. Like I was a Super Nintendo kid. I didn't play the game much. I was very bad at the game when I tried to play it. I didn't watch the cartoon. To me, fandom, Sonic fandom is mostly just thirst. Like that's all I've ever really seen is people who are just like, I find that hedgehog very attractive. So can this movie bring them in? Because I feel like those are the Sonic stands that are going to come out are the ones that have feelings for him. And will this movie
That hedgehog,
bring them into the theater?
That hedgehog frolics. You look at the way that he stretches. That is
Okay.
a frolicking hedgehog.
Is that like a sex word now?
We
Well,
have to
We're
do
just
that.
trying to
Can't
not
say
use the
other
F
word.
word.
yeah.
Oh, got it.
That's Sonic Forks.
It's the word that
Sonic
Roth
Forks.
is supposed to use for the F word.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we've made it pretty
We're
clear
getting
for
better.
her.
We're making
Also, so
we're not-
Pumas are the Audis of this world.
Oh yeah. It's sponsored.
Puma.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's weird that a hedgehog is wearing Pumas, like just a cross animal
Which should be wearing
situation.
hedgehogs.
Yeah. What should New
I don't
Balance?
know, something with a pun,
Oh okay.
maybe.
Yeah.
That is a golden product integration opportunity, though. To be the
True.
sneaker brand of Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
I agree with you. There should be some punny thing, but also money.
You gotta get that movie made. Well, Sonic the Hedgehog, guys. What was your Sonic like? Let us know in the comments, because we want to know. Mine was depressing. Hey guys, you want more Sonic talk like that? Well, wait. First of all, I don't want to be selfish and just move the conversation forward if you guys still have Sonic thoughts.
I guess the one Sonic thought I had is like Venom worked. Why not Sonic? Venom's a 90s thing. Is it Tom Hardy? Should Tom Hardy be Sonic? Yes.
Tom Hardy should be everything.
Tom
Yeah.
Hardy should be Sonic, but just like no animation, no mocap.
He should be painted blue like Tobias.
But not even blue. He just has like a blue, like he did it himself,
Yes.
like some blue paint on his face. He's like, oh, what do you mean? What? Wait, that's Jason Statham. I don't know. I don't do Tom Hardy. Thank you, Dan. Take it from here.
Pants running from pants.
Yeah, now if it's
go
Tom Hardy
first.
with the look at the rings. I don't run all the way around this damn circle.
Well, no, he should be.
these rings.
He should be Eddie Brock. Like,
Yeah.
I'm taking a little ride outside for the
Going for the-
rings.
yeah,
Yeah, gonna go fast. He's just like a meth head who, and then you have these sequences where in his brain it looks just like the Sonic cartoon. Like that's what he thinks is happening, but outside he's completely nude, smeared in blue paint.
You just
digging a chili
pitched-
dog out of the garbage.
You just pitched what the movie would have been if it had been made in the 90s.
Yes. Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
exactly the plot of Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
Or it's a weird backdoor pilot to do a Breaking Bad movie.
Uh-huh.
Like at the end, he goes and buys more blue meth from Walter White.
Yes. Yeah. That's how you become Sonic.
Yeah.
I like it.
The blue meth.
Well, I'm glad that we paused and we kept going.
I turned it
because-
into a $1 billion franchise.
Yeah, you just did. You fixed it.
Yep.
Congratulations,
Thank
Spencer. You are going to get maybe money from that. Hey guys, as of about 2-3 weeks ago, as Screen Junkies News is officially Fandom Entertainment, make sure you like and subscribe. SJU is still on every morning. It's The View, but this. We've got Watching Thrones going on right now every Monday after Game of Thrones. Episode 3 out is right now, where you guys covered what you were able to see of the
Yeah.
Battle of Winterfell.
Yeah. I heard that people, like, there really was some weird compression problem.
Yeah.
Well, here's yes,
Because it
there
looked so
was.
much better the next day.
Because here's what happens is they make the show
Yeah.
on a nice monitor and they color time it super nice, and the aesthetic, I will agree, the aesthetic a bit dark. However, because I got to see it uncompressed. So what they do is it's a big 4K plus picture, and in order for even for cable to broadcast it to you, they have to compress it down because it's a lot of data, and you can't you got to get it over the lines and stuff. So cable compresses the picture, and if you watch it on HBO or HBO Now, they really compress the picture down because you got to stream it. It's got to be streamable, otherwise you'd sit there and it'd be buffering all day. And what happens when you compress a picture like that is what can happen, and I think happened in this case, is it does something that's called crushes the blacks, which means it sounds terrible, but stick with me.
It really does. Leave me alone.
Damn.
It basically, when you compress a picture, you have to get the size down, which means that all of the richness and detail, usually in the darker colors, it gets compressed, and so you lose a lot of the detail in the darker parts of the show. Now, usually that's not as big of a deal because most shows are somewhat brightly lit. But when a show is dark and you compress it, that means you lose a lot of the detail. So what looked nice on a big, nice monitor when you're doing the color correction and stuff, on top of an aesthetic that was perhaps a bit darker than usual for the show or for any show, when it got compressed for home viewing, you lost a lot more detail. And I think what they need is, back in the olden times, there were broadcast standards that said you can't make a show darker than this because when it's broadcast, people won't be able to see it. And then that's kind of gone by the wayside, largely as HBO and other shows don't necessarily operate under the same, it's not a big three network thing. But I think this is a case where it looked nice when they made it, but they perhaps didn't take into account the compression that the show was getting.
And also, so many of the people, critics, us, a lot of us, we live on the West Coast and we watch the same feed as the East Coast watches because we don't want to get spoiled. And watching it, I had my blinds closed and everything, but watching it in LA, I was trying to figure out what I could put over my windows so I could see it better.
Because the sun was still out.
Yeah, the sun's still out. It's like doing stand-up when it's daylight. It doesn't work. And so I do think that because a lot of people on the East Coast were like, it's fine, we saw it. And it's like, yeah, it was nighttime. It was like
ambient light.
Yeah, it wasn't dusk.
I was very fortunate that there was a TV Academy event, and there was a lottery that I luckily got into. They showed it at the TCL Chinese Theater here in Hollywood, and so the version that we saw was for the big screen, obviously, so it was not compressed, and I walked out of it thinking it was a bit dark and frenetic, but that was an aesthetic. Like, I wasn't really sitting there struggling to make out what happened, and I think that maybe the difference in the experience was the version that I saw was the version that looked as they had color corrected it, and it was meant to be seen, and then the version at home was compressed, and I think perhaps that was an unintended consequence of their choices for
That's got to be frustrating to put that much work into this really beautiful episode of television.
Well, that's why that's why they invited all the people. I think they did test it, and they were like, "Oh no!" and then invited Dan and all of his 200 friends to come watch it in the theater because I think they did test it and they recognized that.
Yeah, I think you don't know until, because it's like a congestion problem, right? Like when you have 19 million people at the same time, like you don't know how bad. Doesn't that make it worse when there's a load on the? Can they compress it more just to get it out?
Well, on top of the compression that has to be done to the video file, there's also if your Wi-Fi connection is not necessarily great, it'll degrade the quality of your picture if it's putting strain on your internet connection. So even if it was just by a degree of 20% or 10% as your signal's trying to catch up to the streaming of the picture. I've noticed that on the rewatch for Game of Thrones, actually. Sometimes my picture would go a little fuzzy because it was trying to buffer, and so it degrades the picture so it can catch up. That could also have been happening. It's at least for the streaming people, that doesn't necessarily. Although if you watch shows on cable too, cable companies also compress down. They compress, and they also send out their picture like. The cable company that I use, which I won't name, but there's only one in LA, so it should be easy to figure out. The shows
phenomenal.
Largely look terrible because they do not send the feed out, and the picture is not at a high enough quality for when there's a lot of activity for it to be going, for it not to get pixelated and fuzzy and hard to see. Like if you're watching things like explosions or fireworks, it'll just go grainy sometimes because they're not sending it out with enough, because it's more expensive, with enough power to get the full picture out, because that costs more because you're still pushing data out. It's a whole thing.
Physical media, Dan.
And it's why
Carve
I
it
love
onto a
physical
stone
media.
tablet and mail it to me by
Give
camel.
me a 4K. I guarantee you, the 4K Blu-ray of that episode will look effing amazing.
Yeah.
And that's why I love physical media. I don't have to worry about buffering or Wi-Fi speeds or compression or anything else. I just pop in the disc and watch it. And yes, I know that Blu-rays and stuff are compressed, but it's a lot less compressed than what you're watching on TV.
Here, here. Preach, sir. We've got a ton of Avengers Endgame stuff out right now, and it will also continue probably for the foreseeable future.
Forever.
Because, because
They stopped making movies after that.
I think so.
Yeah, we are all in the end game. There is nothing left.
It's just Sonic trying to find a gauntlet right now to snap. Is all that's left. We have a non-spoiler review out. We have a spoiler review out where we did like an hour-long deep dive into character arcs and all that good stuff. We've got an episode called Burning Questions where you and Mr. Eric Goldman kind of went in and said, what these things mean and what are they going to do? Make sure you check that out. You did a great episode of Charting about sort of the insane records being broken by the movie. So make sure you check all that stuff out. Again, Screen Junkies News, Fandom Entertainment now. It's us, but a little different with car select music from Cruisin' USA at the end of the video. That's pretty much the only difference. So let's
So soothing.
talk. It is actually really kind of chill. I actually like listening to it. Yeah, it's
Just
either...
imagine like the player.
Choose car.
Ready to drive. It sounds like that, or I was telling Spencer, it sounds like the continue music from Ninja Turtles in Time, the old Super Nintendo game.
Yeah.
Just da-na-na-na. Yeah. So choose to continue. Watching Fandom Entertainment. While we talk about Lord & Miller signing a huge deal with Sony Pictures, this is via to her. The duo departs 20th Century Fox TV for a 5-year deal with Sony Pictures TV with a reported value in the 9-figure range. Lord & Miller will create and develop their own comedy and drama projects for broadcast, cable, and streaming, as well as supervise other writers' projects. They will be involved in the development of a suite of television series based on Sony's universe of Marvel characters, produced in partnership with Amy Pascal. Lord & Miller said in a joint statement, "We are so grateful to everyone at Sony Pictures Television for this 9-figure deal.
For $100 million.
For choosing to partner with us and expanding our enduring relationship with the studio. Together, we aim to make groundbreaking work of the highest quality and integrity and to place that work in convenient proximity to your eyeballs and ear holes wherever you may be."
Suck it, Disney.
Suck it, Disney. I mean,
Clone High? I don't know.
just
Clone High's the best.
I miss it so much.
just a multi-million-dollar
I asked-
Clone High movie.
I ask them about it every time I get to interview them. I'm
good.
like, Clone High?
Please, more.
Please?
I mean, this is the smartest move Sony could probably make to compete with Marvel and the other studios. These guys oversaw Spider-Verse. It was
Great.
Yeah.
fantastic. It did pretty well at the box office. Correct me if I'm overstating or using hyperbole.
It did well at the box office, and I think when the inevitable sequel comes out, it's going to do very, very well at the box office.
Critically, did gangbusters.
Exceedingly well.
Yeah, exceedingly well. I mean, I think this is a pretty brilliant move.
Yeah. And Sony TV makes great stuff that's not just Spider-Man, famously Breaking Bad.
Yep.
And other things I should have looked up, but I don't have my phone. They took the guys that ran Sony TV. They got poached for Apple to run that. Yeah, well, I'm sure it was another 9-figure check slid across the table. Okay. Yeah, brilliant move. I think getting into business with them, like, write them a blank check and say, do your thing, because they've now proven that they can turn crap into gold over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, just
Oh, man.
sort of them being positioned as the Feiges of all of this for Sony, completely recontextualizes the silliness of their Spider-Verse. Sony's Spider-Verse to me, not the movie Spider-Verse, but Silver Sable movie, Morbius movie. I feel like with these guys sort of at the helm. No, it's fine.
Silver Sable's just a lady in tight white outfits. What does she do?
Well,
She fights terror, Danielle, and is rich. I think I can't remember. She
but
leads
they'll
a team.
lean into that. It'll be
Yeah,
like they'll
that's
find
true.
a way to flip it that you care.
The Solo movie we could have gotten, you guys.
No, the Silver Sable Solo movie, or a movie about Solo, the Marvel character, while Solo lives, terror dies. Classic '90s material.
Or they're
that we could really
remaking
start
the
reaching
Mario
into.
Van Peebles movie. So
Also completely on board with
Yes.
that, as long as Van Peebles is still attached.
He did a movie where he was Wolverine, you guys, basically. I
Really?
don't remember the name of it. Yes, it's one thing where like they took a bunch of soldiers and they mutated them, and in the end they're basically all Wolverine with claws.
Old Man Peebles?
It's pretty dope.
I like it. Yeah.
Cool. I definitely want to see that. Find out what it is. Ryan, find out what that is.
is it Solo?
Oh, Ryan, you're not even listening.
Mario Van Peebles, before your time.
How are
Dan-
you not up on the Van Peeble verse?
Dan, you got thoughts, opinions?
I love their work. I hope this is fruitful. If I was going to have a hesitation, it would just be that I love Lord and Miller, and I hope that they are allowed to flourish creatively and not get absorbed into a system that perhaps might. We've seen that happen already once before with them, where they had creative instincts that were corporately deemed unsuitable for a project. So I hope that they're given the freedom. I would imagine Sony is paying them a lot of money so that they will have that freedom. But yeah, the only downside I could see to this is just that I hope it doesn't constrain them from bringing us awesome work that they otherwise might not have brought us, or just bring that work to television and whatever other projects they're developing. I think they're really funny, great talents, and I want to see them take. I'm sure they have, but more of a crack at in addition to the sort of genre reinvention stuff and what they've done with the things that already exist. More original stuff from them if they so desire. Just stuff that's just really hatched from their brains. And other than I love the Spider-Man stuff. I love the Jump Street movies. They do great stuff. I also wonder if they've got an original series or something cooking up in their brain. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, we've got some interesting sort of TV creative moves going around. Universal earlier this month re-signed Michael Schur. He's got a similar deal. It's a 9-figure, 5-year deal after Universal lost Mindy Kaling to Warner Brothers with a 6-year, 8-figure deal. So yeah, lots of weird little moves being made on the TV front.
It's called Full Eclipse.
Perfect. Good. Let's get back to what matters, please.
The LA Police Department have a special team of officers with a talent for reducing big-time crime. The team leader has an excellent track record for crime reduction in other cities, but his methods are unconventional. And so is he. He's a werewolf.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Hell yeah, Werewolf
Very
Cop.
into it.
That's actually the prequel to Bright.
Oh man, Bright really went downhill after they lost Van Peebles.
Werewolf Cop.
Werewolf Cop. Isn't there is actually I think there's a movie called Wolf
There
Cop
is.
on Netflix.
Oh,
I'm sure.
Yeah, but it probably doesn't have the same spirit as the Mario Van Peebles film.
No. Does anything have the same spirit as the Mario Van Peebles?
I think that's a fantastic and perfectly fair question. Dan, do you feel like, especially with the streaming wars, people drawing battle lines, are things starting to feel more like the old school studio system where you signed up with Warner Brothers and you were Warner Brothers for the foreseeable future?
I mean, it's certainly a return to that kind of mentality where instead of working on it with a creator one project to the next, studios are feeling seemingly more inclined to saying I'm locking you down. I'm locking you down for 5 years, kid.
We're gonna make you a star.
Make you a star. Which was not always great but however, they also didn't get guaranteed money. They just were under contract and you're gonna do what I tell you. And you're gonna like it. Now dance, Garland.
Sometimes they got a parking space.
Yeah, sometimes they get a parking space or a birthday cake or something. But the general thing of just
Don't eat too much
we
of that
have
cake,
to
Garland.
build exactly one bite. But this idea we have to build a stable of talent to be attractive as an entity is something that ebbs and wanes and certainly seems to be coming back on the. Ebbs and flows. Sorry, that certainly seems to be coming back into vogue because people have to present themselves. If the studios now are having to reorganize and present themselves as this isn't our project. We are amazing. Look at everything that we have. So yeah, it is sort of a bit of a throwback.
Do you guys feel like there's any other talents floating around that should get a similar deal? What I guess what free agents are sort of in play right now that you guys expect to sort of get snatched up in similar kind of deals?
I'm surprised Whedon hasn't. Because it's him, and then also the other Whedon, which is the one where he's like, I'm going to put my name on it as the producer, but then I'm going to give it, I'm Joss Whedon, and I'm going to give it to Jed Whedon. And that's what happened with like Doll's House and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Not that those were terrible shows, but you go into it thinking you're getting a Joss Whedon project, and then you get a Jed Whedon project, so I'm kind of surprised they haven't been kind of swooped up. But there might be reasons.
I can't think of it. Like the
Whedon
Russos
clones.
have one of those gigantic holding deals.
Their own studio.
They started their own studio. Shonda Rhimes went to Netflix. Right?
Netflix has snapped up Ryan Murphy.
Murphy.
Shonda Rhimes.
What other big show? Bang and Weiss? Do they have? Are they still?
Well, they're now with Disney because they're developing all the Star Wars stuff.
Okay.
I don't know if they're
Not necessarily
exclusive,
exclusive
but
idea,
they got
but-
like a reportedly some kind of 3 picture something or other. It's people just locking everybody up. They don't want them to work for the other guys.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
It's kind of nuts, you guys. I want to know who's going to rejoin the newly reformed Transformers writers' room. Remember when we talked about that for like a month?
Well, because Michael Bay said they had like 19 ideas for new Transformers movies coming out of that.
Somebody's got to write them.
I mean, technically I do too. If you just want to sit me down, I can write 19 things right now.
Yeah.
I want to like write a play
Let's do it.
about like one hectic 24 hours in the Transformers writers
Like the 12
when
Angry
Michael Bay
Men.
like blows it all up and they have to start over from
I
scratch.
kind of like that, like a 12 Angry Men, but the Transformers writers room play.
We need to have 19 ideas for new Transformers movies before Michael Bay gets back from his coke break.
I really want to do, like, there's 46 Fringe festivals in Los Angeles every year. Like, I feel like one of them would produce that for me.
I know someone who was in it. I've never gotten the full story of what it was like in there. So
In a
I
Fringe
could do
festival or in a writer's room?
in the Transformers
Ooh,
writers
okay,
room.
slightly more
I need to circle back on that.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Will they come in and be interviewed on camera?
Probably with like a witness protection.
Hashtag for the culture.
I said Barry came in and said that all of our ideas were terrible.
I suggested a Cycloner spinoff, and Michael Bay said, "Why don't you Cyclone us?"
Spraying us with a hose.
With a hose.
Michael Bay didn't like my idea, and I had to pick up his dry cleaning.
I had to wash his car in my underwear.
He put a camera right behind my butt. It was very uncomfortable.
I don't know how to segue.
No good way.
Yeah, let's go. The only way SJU can from a completely ridiculous Michael Bay thing. Let's talk John Singleton a little bit. John Singleton, the groundbreaking film director, screenwriter, and producer, died Monday in Los Angeles after suffering a stroke on April 17th. He was only 51 years old, far too young. A family spokesperson said Singleton passed away peacefully at Cedars-Sinai, surrounded by family and friends. The family said in a statement, "We want to thank the amazing doctors at Cedars-Sinai Hospital for their expert care and kindness, and we do again want to thank all of John's fans, friends, and colleagues for all the love and support they showed him during this difficult time." Of course, Singleton was a 2-time Oscar nominee for his debut, Boys in the Hood, in 1991. He was a key voice in black narratives in the 90s. Other films including Poetic Justice, Higher Learning, Rosewood, Too Fast, Too Furious, Four Brothers. A lot of really amazing talent, speaking up on Twitter about how much Singleton impacted their life. If you don't follow Ice Cube on Twitter, he was sharing a lot of stories and anecdotes and sort of just the impact Singleton had on him, he's the reason Ice Cube was able to really transition from a musician to an actor, director, producer, just sharing a lot of like the conversations and lessons he sort of learned from the guy. Just sort of open it up to the table, reactions to Singleton movies, his impact.
I mean, obviously, like, it was huge for me. I was not, I was never a Boys in the Hood. I was a girl on the army base.
Yep.
But for me, it was always so important that we got to see black narratives. Boys in the Hood for me didn't resonate as much as it does for, I'm sure, many people who grew up in California. For me, Poetic Justice was the one that I really connected with. And he was such a great director that I love Janet Jackson. She's not the actress of our generation. But he really pulled out some great work from her, from Tupac. His ability to find and bring out those talents and people that you would not have expected to otherwise have them. That's what a director does. And, being able to combine that with the poems of Maya Angelou, who unfortunately later I didn't realize that the Janet Jackson character didn't write all those. I didn't realize they were Maya Angelou poems. That's my bad. That is a product of my terrible education. So that was something that really resonated with me. Higher learning was also something that kind of resonated with me, finding a different way into the college experience, particularly where it comes to the John, which I think is still present today, that Rappaport character who comes into the school, wants to be friends, very disillusioned, and winds up finding friends in the white power movement and things like that. And that was back in, 95? So, yeah, he was an amazing director, and I don't have enough good words to say about the impact that seeing people that looked like me, that weren't on cops being naked in a laundromat, that weren't saying dumb things in front of a camera during the news, and that weren't just like Cosby vehicles, that weren't just like a different world. It meant something. So.
One thought I sort of had looking back, you sort of started talking about the performances you got out of Jackson and Tupac, and again like Ice Cube and people like that. Sort of the difference between like a Cosby type vehicle and the people that Singleton chose to work with. I mean, he really leaned in, I feel, to what made hip hop culture so important in the early 90s, and really, instead of doing it lip service, like really leaned in and shined a light on it and tried to elevate those talents as much as he could, which I've always thought was really, really cool.
Beautifully put, White Wolf.
I do what I can. I do what I can. Yesterday my wife was like, "Why does Danielle call you White Wolf?" And I was like, "Why wouldn't she?" I hate that the biggest Singleton story that sticks out for me is so I worked at Blockbuster, no big deal, and people were getting into arguments over copies of Four Brothers. It was like the most popular rental at Blockbuster Video for like 6 months. People would come in, is Four Brothers in? And I'd just be like, no, man. And they would just get so frustrated and walk directly back out.
Well, because it's another one of those stories that isn't just, the story of, because there was that period where it was romanticized about like, this is what the ghetto is like, and black people and crack and shoot 'em up and whatever. And there was some of that, but again, Four Brothers was just a really sweet story about like this made family. I don't know.
Yeah.
Danathan?
I mean, he's a it's when somebody is such a massive voice. I mean, just what he did, and not just an Oscar nominee, the youngest Best Director nominee of all time, the first black man nominated for Best Director, first African American nominated for Best Director, period. That is such a monumentally important achievement. And then and he certainly was very outspoken about the industry, outspoken about the types of stories that get told, but I feel like his name was lost a little bit in the shuffle because so many of his films hit in the 90s, and then not that he was a prolific, he was still serving as a television director, as a producer, as a writer. It's not that he wasn't working, but I feel like it's so many people took what he did with Boys in the Hood and Poetic Justice and Higher Learning and made their versions of it. It's the same thing that happens every time. There's a groundbreaker, and then a studio picks it up, and then they just start pumping out 18 different versions of it. A lot of them don't have the same care. A lot of them don't have the same voice or singularity of voice that they should have, and then you just become one of these films, and people lose the context of it. And so I just think it sucks that it happens so much that people don't stop and acknowledge the importance of someone until they're gone. But it really should not be understated that he's not just a filmmaker who was big in the 90s. Like, he was a groundbreaking filmmaker, and he brought things to the screen that, because they have been covered by TV shows and movies and so many other forms of media in the 25 plus years since Boys in the Hood came out, you lose the context of the original. But he brought stuff to the screen in that film that had not been seen in a realistic way before. and I don't think you can discount that importance.
No, not at all.
Absolutely.
Spinny?
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, sheer level of importance to be at the vanguard of black culture in the 90s is to be at ground zero for American culture in the 90s. Just the sheer amount of influence of these films alone, not even taking into account their soundtracks, which was my main exposure to his work. If Danielle was on an army base far removed from these things, I was even further removed from them. And yet, like, this was my life in the 90s, was just putting these soundtracks on repeat and, sagging my school uniform and just pretending that it was a window into a world. And if Roger Ebert calls movies machines for empathy, so these were definitely empathy machines for places I'd never been to, and for that, he was amazing.
Yeah, I think that about does. Unless anybody's got any other thoughts or anything, I think that sums it up. I had a tremendous loss, far too young, and so obviously, our thoughts are with his family, his friends, his colleagues that work closely with him. A loss like that is absolutely never easy. Let us know in the comments your favorite Singleton movies, scenes, anything like that, stories you've heard about him. A lot of our friends in the city have been sharing really cool stories about him. Our a comic friend of ours, Eli Olsberg, shared a great story about sneaking onto the set of, was it Too Fast?
I think it was Too Fast.
And instead of just being like, you snuck onto my set, get out, Singleton just sat him down by the director's chair and just between takes would shoot the shit with him about making movies and stuff. So I think that's just the coolest story. Yeah. The lesson being, sneak onto movie sets.
That's how Spielberg got his start.
The directors will always take the time to talk to you.
Yes, young white men sneak onto movie sets. Not anyone that looks like me or John Singleton.
But I'll keep my phone on so that you can hear the conversations that I have.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I care. I care about you. I care about your continuing cinematic education. Guys, that's our show today. Next week, we've got more Watching Thrones. Movie Fights is going to be a pre-taped Avengers Endgame extravaganza this week. So Thursday we are bringing in some massive Marvel heads to battle it out and yell at each other and determine once and for all what the objectively best things about Endgame and the Avengers. It's a show that has a weird structure. This way we have an excuse to talk about movies.
Kind of like this show.
Kind of like this show, with less yelling, and the losers aren't immediately murdered. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good day. See you next time. Bye.